So we own over 30 automotive repair shops. That business will do $42 million in revenue. You don't make money through diversification. You keep your money through diversification. You make your money through the opposite, which is concentration. I only can eat, sleep, and breathe my business.
How much are you investing a month right now? All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Nickonomics. One of my favorite things about doing this show is I get to talk to successful entrepreneurs, and anytime that I see they do something weird outside of the norm, something they weren't supposed to do, I want to ask questions like why they did it. And on today's episode, I sit down with Brian Beers, who's a successful entrepreneur, owns multiple franchises, doing about $42 million a year in top line revenue. And he did one of those things that are kind of head scratching. He's pivoted pretty hard into making content specifically on YouTube. So I got to ask him why. What's his thought process? How much is he spending a month on a content team? How does he think about ROI? What's he doing and what's the master plan down the road? I think you're really going to like this conversation. It's a little bit outside of the norm, but I think it gives you really good insight into how successful entrepreneurs like Brian think about growth once they hit a ceiling. If you like this episode, please like, subscribe. But with that, let's hop into the show. Love you guys.
Yeah. So, I've been in franchising my entire life. Actually, my parents got into franchising in the 70s. So I was like born into it. And so over the last 15 years, I've built this company kind of from what my dad started up to what I've scaled it today. So it's my brother and I, we have over 30 automotive repair shops. That business will do $42 million in revenue. We just launched a painting business. I have another business where we help people find and scale franchises. And now I'm going kind of online media presence in order to find people that we can partner with and kind of continue to expand and help people build a fortune through franchising.
You've done an incredible job. And I mean, if anybody wants to listen to your background, there's an episode that you just did recently with Alan Pence on the Small Business Mentor podcast. And go listen to that because it'll give you like how you started, how you grew, how you rolled that. Yes, your parents or your dad and your uncle started in franchising, but it wasn't like you inherited, $42 million worth of revenue in those locations. I think they had like 6 or somewhere in that ballpark.
I was an employee. Like I did my first deal. I was 6 years into it. And then my brother and I, we saved money. And then we went out and bought our own like business, bank loan or whatever, and rolled it all as like one company. Like we operated as one unit, but there was the 6 original stores and we had 2 of them. And then we just kind of kept all the money in there. We didn't really take distributions and then just used that money in 17 to buy another store and 2 in 18 and 2 in 19 and 20 and 21 was like 11 and then 5 and then 6 and then whatever. It kept compounding. And then eventually we bought out my dad and uncle.
You've been following this roll-up strategy playbook. Like it's a tried and true strategy to roll up and grow and build revenue and build these locations. But you've done something recently that I want to talk about because I'm fascinated by it, where you have pivoted. I don't even know if pivoted is the right word, but you've gone harder into content. So you've got a fairly large Twitter following. I don't know how many followers you have. 40,000?
30-ish.
30. Okay, 30,000 followers. I don't know if you're on Instagram, but I'm sure you'll start going there with this. But I've seen you start putting out some incredible freaking quality videos, man. Tell me about what you're doing.
I've always loved teaching people. Like even in the business we own, like I'd be the guy that would want to teach people, here's like the bigger vision. This is what we're trying to achieve. This is the playbook. This is what we have to do. I've always loved that component of just like the aha moment of helping people kind of see the light and then helping them achieve it. Right. So like, and I know if I can teach somebody something and then they can do it and then they have success, and now there's a light bulb moment in their head. Now they continue to do that thing, right? Now I don't have to like teach them or force them or whatever, because they now believe it, right? They saw the vision, they did the thing, whatever. Maybe they had some problem, but they overcame it. And it's like the hero's journey, right? As you go through. And so I've always done that. Like that's how I've built the company, like from zero pretty much was teaching and educating and coaching. So I've always had a passion for that. It just expanded. It like started small. It started small and then snowballed of like, going on Twitter, just like, here's my story. Here's how I built this thing from scratch. And here's how we scaled it. And like, ultimately it's helping, create like a great life for me. I have many friends who it's the same thing and like who own franchises, and together, like we're similar ages and going through, similar things and having similar success. And so like, it's duplicatable, right? It's a thing where not a lot of people know about, right? There's a lot of misconceptions in franchising from, hey, it's McDonald's or it's KFC or it's you need millions of dollars to do it, or it's like a chuck in a truck and only you buy yourself a job. It's for people who are unemployable or like whatever. And both those scenarios are true. It's like 2 ends of the spectrum, but there's also this world in between. And I thought, hey, if I can help people just like learn about it and I can help other people make money and like ultimately have success and like get on the path to building wealth and cash flow, that like good things will come of that. Right. And even when I first started, I had there's no product to sell. There was no monetization. It was more of just like, I know I'm having success. If I teach other people how to success, like good things will happen. And so that's kind of how I got started on it.
I get that with the Twitter stuff, right? Like, hey, I'll post some content. I'm kind of giving back. I'm helping people understand. I'm educating, etc. But your YouTube stuff is so freaking high quality. Like, you're obviously super intelligent. You teach really well. You break down concepts in a way that make it accessible for people. But then you add like the editing and the lights and the production value on it. And it's just top notch. It's a matter of time before you gain steam on YouTube. What's the thesis behind it? Like, yes, there's good things will happen for sure. But what's the thesis behind putting that much time and energy and effort?
So that's how it started, I guess. And then how it's going is I've been at the Twitter game for 2 years. I follow a lot of the major people, right? The personal brand people. Cody Sanchez is a big one I follow, and a number. And they all talk about like, there's these different forms of capital, and that it starts with like, there's money capital, which is like, people have money, right? Get things done. People who have labor, like they have labor force, they can get stuff. There's code, right? You can write code, you can like whatever, you can own the world. And then now it's audience, right? It's people who have attention and who have audiences. And there's totally unknown people who have no money, they have no code, they have nothing, but there's a large group of people that, like them, believe in them. And then that can create amazing value because you can speak directly to people. And as the world gets like more polarizing, right? People push away from each other. They also come together in these groups. Anyway, so I buy into that theory. I live it. Like, I'm in certain groups that are very tight knit, and some of them we've never even met in person, but we know each other, right? We help each other because we're on similar paths,
I wholeheartedly believe in this thesis as well, which is if you have an audience, you can own distribution. And if you own distribution,
Yep.
That's a massive competitive advantage. You may not have the capital, you may not have the time, you may not have the expertise, but if you own distribution, you can still be hyper successful. And you see it, Cody Sanchez, she has an investment thesis that I've heard from people close to her where it's like, is this a media accelerated business? Her whole thing is investing in media accelerated businesses. And you see it. And she bought into Resi Brands, which, you have that one. Yep. Do you have that one, Pinger?
Yep. Okay. Yeah, we're a franchisee. Yep.
She bought into Resi Brands. That's a media accelerated business. You look at Alex Hormozi, he's doing a very similar thing as well with Acquire.com, where he's going and sort of helping these companies that can be accelerated by media. Is your thesis to like niche down on that?
Yeah.
And say, I'm going to be X?
Yeah. So my thesis that I'm currently like laying the groundwork for is to do what Alex Hormozi is doing, but in the franchise world. So give out a whole bunch of free content, right? To educate everybody on how to find a franchise, how to scale it. And then ultimately through media, filter down to find like the best operators who then we can partner with, and we can provide capital, and we can provide coaching and guidance to help them scale their business. Because like, I can only do so much. You need somebody who owns a business, who eats, sleeps, and breathes it to really grow it. I only can eat, sleep, and breathe my business. I have this whole thing on holding companies. We could go down like that rabbit hole if you want. But like this idea that, I'm going to own all these businesses. This is kind of, you're like, I don't know.
Please.
But we can talk about this. Let's side note this. But like, I'm going to own all these businesses. And like, but what happens is you get dilution, right? You get dilution of focus. And it happened to me years ago. We owned a bunch of different franchises. None of them worked out because like I was the only key person in it, right? And so our thesis too is like, let's, instead of me having all these like employees and like me being still the one, even if we have some partners, like let's find the guys who this is their life, and then we can help accelerate them to building an 8-figure business. Ultimately, fast forward the story of like why I'm doing all this stuff. That's one of the key pillars we're looking for, is using content to educate people, to build a reputation, to build trust, to find the people to eventually partner with. Then they get the inside track knowledge. And we've done a few.
When are you getting the nose strip and the really tight short shorts with the cutoffs? You're not hitting the gym enough yet?
I go to the gym twice a week, so I'm getting...
You got to pump those numbers up, rookie, if you're going to compete with Alex.
I know, we're different.
All right, now's the part of the show where I feel the most uncomfortable, but my therapist says I need to face my fears, so here we are. I've started a newsletter, and I want you to subscribe. And what you're going to get every single week are the aggregated conversations from that week that I had on this podcast with an overview of what their business actually looks like. I'm also going to throw in a review of 1 or 2 businesses that are listed for sale. I'll give you my opinion on whether or not the EBITDA multiple is good, or there's customer concentration, or there's red flags or green flags. And then lastly, I'm going to give you one piece of actionable advice every single week on how to buy your first business. So click the link below, subscribe to my newsletter, and let's get back into the show.
Back to your original question. So why YouTube? So I've been on Twitter for 2 years. Twitter's fun for like real-time thing, right? I've helped a lot of people through it, but it's also like, if you don't put out content, like you don't get views, right? And stuff you tweeted out 2 days ago is completely lost in the ether.
It's gone.
It's like YouTube, people watch YouTube videos from 7 years ago. Like I've had people, it's an asset. It's like buying real estate. You build YouTube, it's real estate. It can produce for years. And so now my strategy is, Twitter's great for like testing ideas, see what sticks, right? But then ultimately the goal is to get them over to YouTube, and then ultimately to own it through email.
I think like what I discovered, and probably what you're discovering as well, is like Twitter's a great platform for real-time interaction and engagement, but the discoverability of YouTube and Instagram doesn't even compare to Twitter. They are so much better. Like YouTube, you're going and you're like, how do I start a franchise? And if you've got lots of content on there over years of time, of course, Brian's going to pop to the top. Nobody's going on Twitter and being like, how do I buy a franchise? They're just not searching for that. And even if they go to your profile and they start scrolling, it's like, oh, there's so much text. Maybe they get like 5 tweets deep. But you go to Instagram or you go to a YouTube channel and like you got pictures. Oh, cool. I can click on this. This looks attractive. This looks great too. So like the discoverability of those platforms is so much better than Twitter. Anyways, there's a lot of things I love about Twitter, but there's also a lot of things that are frustrating about it. When did you kind of come to this? How did you, and why? Were you like, hey, I want to get to $100 million, and so I got to figure out a way to scale there? Or like, what was the?
I mean, a couple of things. I've invested a lot of money into coaches over the years, right? I'm like a coach in a lot of ways, so I view it as eating it too. So I've hired personal brand coaches to learn this stuff. A lot of it is through them. One of them was Roy Vaden's Brand Builders. He worked with like Ed Milet and a bunch of people. That was like the first one I did. I did that like 2 years ago when I first started my podcast. That one was pretty good. Most recently, I'm in Matt Gray. I don't know if you follow him on Twitter, but he's got millions of followers. It's all about personal brand and then building a business around a personal brand.
How old are you?
37.
Okay. So we're like the same age. You have kids?
Yeah, 7 and 3.
Okay. I got 4 boys under 10, 10, 7, 4, and 2. It's a crazy house, but like you're successful. You've got a big company. It's growing. You don't have to do anything. I'm not saying you could go to retire on a beach, but why start investing all this time? What's the motivating factor behind that?
Yeah, I get that question all the time. And I think it's ingrained in me. And it's like people who build big companies, the only thing they know how to do is work. You know what I mean? It's just like I am just not like, oh, I'm just gonna like turn it off and like go golf all day. Like the people who can build the big company aren't the people that can just turn it off. It doesn't work that way. I like new challenges. I like the challenge of figuring out in that business is, how do we go through acquisition? How do we structure these seller finance deals? Like I only went to a bank one time to acquire we've done millions of dollars of seller finance deals that like we've figured out how to do. We're paying cash or whatever. Like it's like a game. Now we're in this phase of like that business has slowed down from a acquisition standpoint, which is what I enjoyed. Now it's into like finding vacant buildings and developing stores basically from scratch. And that takes 9 months maybe to open a store. That's like not fun to me. And I have like a team of people. They can like, I hire all these ex-military special operations guys who love that shit. Like they're really good at like the organization and the planning and the follow through and like dealing with the vendors and like all that stuff. Like I don't want to deal with any of that stuff. And so then it's like, I enjoy the challenge of building this. I have no idea how to build a media company. Like literally started from zero knowledge base, but I enjoy the process of learning and growing. And now I'm figuring it out. Right. And like, even Cody, like, and it's cool because like the more I figure it out, the more like I get connected to other people. So like Cody Sanchez, I wouldn't say we're friends, but like we're in a text basis now. But I get to like ultimately.
You're familiar.
Yeah, we're familiar with each other. We'll leave it at that. And maybe we'll be friends by the time this podcast comes out. I don't know. I get to start to know other people, and then I can learn from them because they're a bunch of steps ahead. She's 3 years ahead of me. Like I knew of her 3 or 4 years ago. She spoke a lot into this mastermind that I'm part of. She had no following, right? And it's something like that. Huge growth, 3 years, 6 million followers, I think it is now, from zero. I remember it was zero. I just look at that and be like, man, there's a lot I can learn. And then even, I get to that level, then it's like, whatever, it's the Hermosis or the Milets or like whoever it is then, who's a couple more steps ahead. And I don't know, I always just, Like that to me is fun and exciting and it's new. And I know it can have an impact on a massive amount of people versus like, even if I stay in my company, we have 200 employees, right? Maybe we could double, maybe I can get to 400. I mean, I could have an impact on millions of people, right? And I think that is more exciting and fun and just enjoyable.
It's such a weird thought because I've had that thought before too. You are actually going to do it. I may or may not do it. But it's like, am I prideful? Am I a douche for saying like, yeah, I could do what they're doing? I look and I'm like, no, I could do what they're doing. Why could I not do what they're doing? It's just kind of a weird headspace to be for me sometimes.
I mentioned I was in this mastermind group. So I'm in this group. I've been in it for years and there's guys in it worth $100 million, $200 million. And they share their financials. They share their stories. They're like interviewed on a nothing holds back private thing. And even the guys, worth a huge amount of money, not that much older than, in their 50s or whatever. And his mindset was he looked at other people ahead of him and said, they're not any smarter. They're not any more educated. They had a plan and they set goals and they work hard. And if they can do it, then I can do it. That was like, he lived by that. And then I was like, man, I think the same thing. Like I see other people doing this stuff and I'm like, I can do that. Like even like Graham Stephan, he's like, 5 million YouTube followers. I look at his videos. Like we kind of look alike or whatever, similar profile. We're like short white dudes, whatever. He's like a similar age. He might be a little bit younger.
He had better hair.
Yeah. But I just look at him and like his videos like aren't that impressive from a production standpoint. And the content he talks about isn't that great, but he's extremely consistent, right? He's done 7 years straight of 2 videos a week or whatever it is. And he's built this amazing business. I just look at those guys and I'm like, man, if he can do it, I can do it. And then maybe I can do it in 5 years instead of 7 years, right?
It's kind of interesting. I'll be vulnerable with you for a second. I watched one of your YouTube videos and I had the same thought, not for the reasons maybe that you're saying, but 2 years ago, I had companies that were doing $30 million a year in revenue, 300 plus employees. And I sold most of those companies. And I've done deals $10 million plus, and I've bought and sold over a dozen businesses. And when I watched your video on seller note process,
okay, yeah,
and when you were like, I've done millions of dollars in transactions, and I think you said you've done like $2 million worth of deals or 3, somewhere in that ballpark.
6, yeah, but yeah,
6. Okay, I'm sorry, 6. Sorry, that wasn't.
Let's get the finger count right.
I was like, dude, I've done more than 6. Like I have experience here. It was for me like almost this weird validating feeling of not like, oh, Brian sucks, right? That wasn't the feeling. It was like, oh, okay, I could play in this arena because I actually have experience in that space. I think that's a very important characteristic that you have where you're exposed to it. You're like, yeah, why couldn't I do it? I can do that.
The biggest challenge anybody has who wants to build a personal brand or be a creator, like whatever the terminology, an influencer, right? There's like these different tags. At the end of the day, it's all the same, right? It's consistency. It's showing up every single week and putting out content. And I struggle with that. I'm like, I spend a lot of time on this and I still struggle with it, right? And as much as like there's people out there, even, me prior to this, it's just like, it's the commitment to do it. And even like Mr. Beast talks about like, how do you grow on YouTube or how do you get better? And he's like, well, make 100 videos and then let's talk. Like, and people drop out after making 5. But like, you have to make the 100 videos to get enough reps in to build the habits to then be able to take it to the next level. And
there is no shortcut.
Yeah, there's no shortcut to any of this stuff. It's the same as building a business. I look at like, I've seen it even in growing our business, right? 42 million or whatever, but it's like an exponential compound growth curve where like you do all this stuff in the early days and you're going a little bit better, but you don't see it. You don't feel it. It's the story of the penny that doubles every day or whatever. And it's like, it takes a long time before you start to really see it, but then it grows exponentially. Like the rich get richer, right? Like in our franchise business, as we become a better dealer and make more money, we'll get like the franchisor brings us deals. Like other people come to us with deals. We get better negotiating power with vendors. Like we can get cheaper prices than other people because we've got the buying power. Like a lot of that stuff happens. And it's the same thing in the content game where it's this compound growth and it feels like you're not making, so that's where a lot of people give up on it. But then bam, like things happen exponentially. And then all of a sudden now like you're rich in content and now you start to do deals with like Cody and Alex and Graham. And all of a sudden now I'm being exposed to millions of people and it grows like a rocket ship. And I know that's going to happen if I'm consistent.
I have no doubt about it. If you're consistent, your content's really, really good. You're smart. You break things down really easily and you're building trust at scale. Like that's what social media is. It allows people to build trust in you. In scale, usually you're doing it one-on-one, but this allows them to like hear you for hours on end. And Like, just to tie the bow on this thesis, when venture-backed companies raise money, they raise millions of dollars, sometimes billions. What do they spend the majority of that money on? They spend the majority of that money on acquiring customers, acquiring market share. And this, in my mind, is no different. You're building a distribution channel that will allow you to get to, whatever number you want to get to with your franchise company. But it's a funnel for deals. It's a funnel for people, talent in particular, which is really, really important. And it allows you access to things that you wouldn't have otherwise had in the past. I'm all in on this thesis. Like, it's the same as marketing. You're diverting dollars to building a brand as opposed to going out and buying ad space in other places. What has been the most surprising thing for you? When did you flip the switch? When did you go hard on
content stuff?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's scaled, right? It was like, hey, Twitter, and it's been fun. And I've had a podcast, but the podcast was kind of like a side thought or whatever. I want to say it's probably been 6 months-ish, maybe beginning of the year. I thought, listen, I'm gaining traction, things are going well. But listen, I know YouTube is it, and I know I can't do it alone. I need video editors. I need people to help with content ideas, with script writing, with whatever. There's hooks, there's thumbnails, there's titles. There's a lot to learn. And it's not just, hey, I'm going to write this tweet, bang this tweet out at 5 o'clock in the morning and schedule it for later. And I'm go about my day. There's a lot more involved. And so I think I decided, hey, I want to grow this thing. And then that's when I guess it switched. And then I would say really it was over the last 2 months that I've really now started to make the better YouTube videos. I hired a chief of staff, which is a whole nother conversation.
That was going to be my question to you, right? You're still running a big business.
Yeah.
How do you have enough time? I'm going to guess here. You're spending 30 hours a week on content, at least. How are you able to do that when you still have a business that you're running? Because I sold all my businesses and I don't have a job. Yeah. So I'm cool. I'm in on this.
Yeah. So a couple years ago, the Midas business, at least the auto repair business, right? A couple years ago, I was the COO. We have 4 district managers. Each one of them oversaw 6 to 8 stores. They all reported to me as kind of the operations person, but I'm also the CEO. And I'm also whatever, all this other stuff I do, real estate and different things. And then I had a bunch of friends who had hired, and they use this foundation that helps place former special operators into high paying civilian jobs. So they place Green Berets, Army Rangers, Navy SEALs, MARSOC guys straight out of the military. And so there's a guy in Philly, he had hired one of these dudes, and it was guy was crushing it. And he was a good friend of mine. He would be man, the guy's pretty much running my company now after a couple months. I was I need that. So I reached out to this company. I tell them what I want. And I would say I don't hear from them for 3 months. And then they send me this guy, Colin. But he's the only guy we talk to, and we love him. He starts in August of 22. I would say after 3-4 months, he had taken over kind of the operations for the business. And obviously there's still a learning period, but now it's been almost 2 years. He pretty much completely runs the company.
And he's your COO? Is that his title?
He's the COO. Yeah. He's a chief operating officer. He's awesome. And he's way better at it than me. I think sometimes as an owner, who's built the business, you're no one can do it better than me. In reality, he's way better than me at it and enjoys it. This is what he does. Yeah. I was his first job since he was 16 years old, working at Abercrombie and Finch or whatever he says.
Dang.
Right. But so there's all these guys that come out of the military, specifically these special operations guys who have a ton of raw, people skills that you cannot teach, right? They're loyal, they're accountable, they're very driven, they have a high emotional intelligence, and they want to be part of a team. They want to win. They've risen to the top 1% or maybe 0.1% or whatever within the largest organization on earth or whatever it is in this specialized field. And so they don't get to that point unless they have these skills. And I figured, listen, if he has all these skills that I can't teach, but I can teach them franchising, or we have a franchisor, they can help teach franchising.
Right.
That's what I want. So anyway, I hired him. He's been great. He's, the best employee I've hired. And then, so he kind of runs that business. I only spend a few hours a week. My primary role is the growth side of it. I'm the one talking to the realtors. They send the properties. I'm saying, hey, I think this will work or not. And then,
what was the name of that company that was placed?
Yes, it's called the Special Operator Transition Foundation. So it's SOTF.org is their email.
SOTF.org.
Yeah.
And did you pay them a fee for placement?
Yeah.
Or
So it's a nonprofit. And so then whatever, I made I think a $10,000 donation.
okay, in the form of a donation.
Yeah. So that was the first hire.
Okay.
And then, so he pretty much runs that business. And then as I spend very little time on the day-to-day kind of side of it. And then as I've started to build like the content team and just like this idea of like whatever, the miniacquisition.com, like we haven't talked about that, but we're starting to do these deals where we're finding these guys, we're partnering with them. I've got these like all these other things going on. I wanted somebody who's just like at his same level, who'd be a right-hand man to me just to help with like all the other stuff I'm working on. So I went back to the same foundation. I kind of told them, listen, you got anybody who wants to live in Philadelphia, like send them my way. And so I had talked to a bunch of different guys over the course of the last year. I was able to help direct them to maybe another local business owner that I knew, or just like give them guidance or like whatever. And I ended up talking to this one guy and I really liked him. And I thought, I don't know. Man, this guy's like really sharp. He had his own business. He was like starting and, he was from Philadelphia and looking to move back. And then I came to them like, hey, I need a chief of staff. Like, I wonder if this guy would be interested. And so, we spent a number of months kind of going back and forth and, he had multiple offers, similar thing all through this foundation and people we knew. And he's still in his like transition period. He comes full time in September 1st.
But he's there in Philadelphia with you.
Sort of. He still lives in Virginia. So he'll be up here one day a week. I think long-term he'll move here. I think his like everybody in his family wants to move back. They have a daughter graduating high school, whatever. They don't want to disrupt family life stuff, which is totally fine. Totally fine for me. I mean, whatever. One day a week is enough in person. I do a lot of things online and virtually and phone and text. So like, I wouldn't want to meet with him every day anyhow. So like, it's totally fine for me.
So you freed yourself up. You've gotten more time and resources to throw at this. First question is, how much are you investing a month right now building this content machine, right? So that said, you have an editor. Sounds like you have somebody helping you with writing. Can you like talk about what that looks like?
Yeah. So $6,000 a month ish.
Okay. That's not
in that range. I've got a video editor. I've got a personal VA. I have 2 people that kind of help with like graphics and social media. And I do have a writer. I don't know. The writers are like, I'm a pretty good writer. I've written all my stuff. So like, I've really struggled with that side. I'm moving more towards maybe just like, it's like a copywriter who's someone who could like take my stuff and maybe like, I need a better headline. I need a little bit more like pizzazz. Like I'm really good at writing like all the very tactical things. But sometimes it's like the hook that I need help with. And it's not like a full-time thing, but I'm struggling with that. I have a couple ideas. I've tried some of the ghostwriters.
How do you think about the investment? Are you like, okay, I'm going to do this for 6 months. And then within 6 months, I'm going to at least start seeing ads on YouTube because I'm going to get monetized, or I'm placing it in my newsletter? Or are you not even looking at it that way?
Yeah, I mean, we do have, so currently, I do have a monetization strategy currently, which is through a franchise consulting business.
Okay.
And so a lot of it is, so we talk about helping people find franchises, what to look for, how to find one. They can come and work with us, and basically it costs them nothing. And we kind of play matchmaker to help them find a brand that matches their goals and their budget and whatever they love. And if we are successful in playing matchmaker, the franchisor pays us a commission. I've built a team there as well. So like, I work with some people directly, but a lot of it is whatever. People come to me through social media, then they work with somebody on my team. I host like weekly group calls. I've created courses and it's all free, whatever, that anybody working with us gets access to. And I'm working to put all that stuff on YouTube, like all that content. And so,
are you looking at it though through the lens of like, okay, is there an ROI on this $6,000 I'm spending? Or are you like, I'm so sold on this, I'm willing to put $200,000 into this before I see a first dollar, quote unquote, back?
No, it's kind of it's investment. I mean, from the consulting side of it, it is, it's profitable. Like I'm doing more than $6,000 a month. So like it's paid for in a sense of like from that business, it pays for the content side of it. And then I'm also like, am generating this, like in my mind, this asset that can grow over time like that and have that compound effect. And so I don't like have a ROI. Like and it's oscillated. Like I was spending more at one point, but then I was like, man, this isn't like, I'm not growing the audience. I guess one of the ROIs I'm looking for is audience growth, right?
Yeah. That's what I was going to ask.
I'm going to hire you to like help me get more Twitter followers or get more newsletter people or like LinkedIn or whatever it is. And it's like, if I'm not seeing that you can do better than me, like it's not worth it. And then I think it gets you off your game too when you hand too much stuff off.
Is your like North Star metric subscribers on YouTube? Is it newsletter subscribers? What to you is like, this is going well?
It's calls booked for people that want to work with my team currently. It's an outcome based, like, because ultimately I could have 1 million followers, but like if it's not generating inbound leads for us, it doesn't matter. Right. Yeah. But I could have 100 followers. Man, if all 100 are booking calls, like we're doing pretty good. So that's currently it. Now, on a short-term basis, yes, like I'm investing a ton of time and effort into YouTube. Like it was funny. Like on Twitter, I used to get whatever. I have a number of views, 100,000, 200,000, 300,000. That was like, man, this is exciting, right? On YouTube, I get like 500 views and I'm like pumped about it. It's like you get like reframed on like what's like, what's good.
It's just so much harder to grow on YouTube than it is on Twitter.
Yep. It's like the short-term pain to have the long-term gain, or Twitter's like the reverse where you can get short-term gain, but has no long-term benefits.
So 6 months from now, let's say you look back on this experiment, you've spent $40,000 6 months from now on your content team. What would be the metrics that you would set to say, this is how I know I've been successful?
I'm about 41,000 followers currently across like the platforms. I'm looking, I would love to have 100,000 by the end of the year. I don't think I'm going to hit that. I want to grow by YouTube, whatever. I'm like a numbers guy. It was more of like a linear growth to say, hey, could I grow YouTube from, I don't know, I'm at 900 today. By the end of the year, could I get to 6,000, 5,000, something in that range? Like that would be a success there. LinkedIn, I'm at 6,000. Can I get to 10,000 by the end of the year? Right? That's possible. Newsletter, I'm at 5,000. Can I get to 10,000? And Twitter, I don't know. I'm at about 30,000. My goal is 75, but man, I don't know if it's all this politics, like the Trump and Biden.
Politics, man.
But man, I get no traction anymore. And it's like, so that's what's frustrating, right? You spend all this time and effort building this thing. And then now like I write the same exact stuff and nobody sees it. And like, because their newsfeed, unless it's like my newsfeed is completely jammed up with assassination conspiracies.
You're articulating the reason why, and you said it earlier, you want to get people on your newsletter.
You want to own the audience. You got to own the audience. And for people, like they want to see my stuff, like, and they don't see it. And the inbox is how you get there. And so anyway, that's the biggest challenge is you can grow, but it also like, if that's your business, it could kill your business. Like you could get blacklisted tomorrow.
Totally.
And have nothing to show for it. And so I think anybody who's listening, they like this, you have to own the audience. And the only way you own it is email. It's email or text, but email is the way you own it.
All right. So 5,000 subscribers on YouTube, 10,000 on LinkedIn.
So Twitter, I'm 30,000 now. If I could get to 50,000, that would probably be a win at this. I think that'll be good. But then like that's linear, but I know things happen exponentially and I want to be having fun with it. Anybody, right? You can choose as a business owner, you can choose the life that you live, right? You can design whatever you want. And it's like, I want to make sure that I'm having fun. Like I enjoy what I do every day, that I'm not like super stressed out about it. I'm doing what I want. I think that's more important to me than anything. And I currently am. Enjoy what I do and I'm happy about it. But like whatever, there's days I'm like, I set a high standard for myself. And there's days I know I'm falling short of the standard I set for myself. So, it's self-imposed. But it's like, I want to build the habits so that I can play at the level that I know I'm capable of playing at.
And you said it too, like it's not linear. You could be consistent every single day. And then all of a sudden you've got a post that pops off and you grow your subscribers by 1,000. Like Chris, Mobile Home Park guy, my business partner, consistent. He's been consistent on Instagram. He just posted a video about this like perfume vending machines. It's gotten 10 million views between Instagram and TikTok. And we're going to build another business basically off of this tweet. But he's also gained like 50,000 followers on Instagram, and YouTube, frankly, which I'm kind of butthurt about because we did an episode together and that episode's been his most popular episode and it's gotten him like 700 subscribers. And I'm like, freaking hey, man, I didn't even get anything from that. But anyways, it's crazy how like all of a sudden it happens. Yeah. Anyways. All right. I got two questions to end this interview. You have 2 hours in your day. I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyways. You have 2 hours in your day. You have no family time and you have no business time scheduled. You can do those things, but you don't have any obligations. What are you doing in that time? What are you obsessed with right now?
That's not the content.
It doesn't have to be the content. Like, I think that's the answer, but
yeah, currently honestly, it is the content because I enjoy it. Like I got a lot of stuff I want to get out there and it's the game. And I've always loved business. I've always loved playing the game. And this is the game I'm playing right now. And so like, I'm trying to become a better golfer. I shoot like 100. I do it with my dad. So like, I'm trying to do that, but like, that's not going well. I'm trying to pick up pickleball. I have a whole bunch of friends that play pickleball, like not locally, but like throughout the country. And so I've taken a couple lessons. I am pretty good. I just need to like I have the ability to be pretty good. I just need to play more.
It's funny. This goes back to like one of the earlier comments that you said in the conversation. I'm the type where I want to like golf.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, but I don't enjoy it. Like, it's just like, I would rather be having these conversations or like brainstorming on something cool that we could figure out. Same is probably true of pickleball, where I'm like, yeah, I could go and play. And I enjoy it. I have fun. I like getting out there. But like, I'm kind of obsessive with this stuff. And anyways, so last question. What advice would you give yourself 10 years ago?
Let's see, 10 years ago, I would have been 27. I was in the throes of it. I would have said it at that point, it would have been probably to stay super focused on my core business, which was Midas. We tried to build the mini Berkshire, right? Like, I'm going to own a bunch of these different things. And like, we bought like Section 8 single family homes, and we bought into some other franchises. And we bought into like an Amazon, store. And like, how did it all turn out? Like, we shut down all those other things and like, and lost, made some money, lost some money, whatever. But then the bigger thing, it was a distraction for me. And during that time period, like there was a bunch of opportunities that like we could have, there's a bunch of stores we could have bought, we could have opened, deals we could have done in that business that probably would have added like $7-8 million of revenue today, like annually today.
Wow.
But I said no to those, or I wasn't interested in those because I was distracted by these other things that like shiny object syndrome or like whatever. I just thought like, oh, I need diversity in my income. Right. But like, like, oh, all my money is from I was making good money, but like it was all from them. And it's just like, people have this misconception that like, you don't make money through diversification, right? You keep your money through diversification. You make your money through the opposite, which is concentration. And if I stayed focused just on that business, I would have been, further along than I am today. But it's hard, right? You see all this stuff. You see you guys doing all this crazy shit with perfume and mobile home parks and all this stuff.
I'll share my perspective a little bit. The first perspective that I have is everybody looks at Warren Buffett and they're like, oh, he has all these companies. It's fantastic. Like Warren Buffett's thesis wasn't, I'm going to invest in a bunch of different companies, therefore I'll be rich. His thesis was, I'm going to invest in underpriced assets. So whenever there was an opportunity, he invested and he would double and triple down in those investments. For me, I sold a lot of these businesses over the last 2 years. And so the last 6 months in particular, I'm kind of like a kid in a candy shop. I was so focused on those businesses that now I'm like, for the first time, I'm like, oh, that's it. Franchising. What is that? Oh, social media. What is that? Like, I'm just like learning about all this stuff. And it's so fascinating to me. Chris, unfortunately, he has shiny object syndrome. Like that guy can't focus to save his life. But I agree with you. I think focus to get your first nut, whatever you want to call it, is incredibly important. And then you can go play. Like get whatever safety you need first, and then you can go invest in these like other opportunities. But everything else before that is just a distraction. All right, this has been rad, my friend. Best place for people to find you, I'm assuming, is Twitter.
On Twitter at Brian Beers, or if you want to check out my YouTube, I'm working to build there. Same thing at.
Well, as you saw with Brian, the ability to get your message out is extremely important. And if you're an entrepreneur who's struggling with getting visibility to what your product is, I want you to go check out episode 16 with Matthew Brown. He's a ghostwriter, and he talks about all kinds of strategies that different business owners use to get their message out and sort of what he does to bring visibility to those owners. So check it out, Niconomics Podcast, episode 16, and I'll see you guys next time.